We're gonna have to pick on somebody, I guess.
I don't either.
Oh, really?
I think it's staff's turn. I think it's staff's turn. Look at those bright colors over there. I love it.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, I'll have maybe Tyler.
Can we start?
Are you ready to start?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's 5:30. As you can plainly see, we have no mayor tonight. So the council would need to make a motion for a mayor pro tem. Whoever receives the honor of being the mayor pro tem needs to know that there is no outside entity that's come tonight to offer the prayer, so you get to pick.
I make a motion that Ron Adams be our mayor pro tem for this evening.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Mayor?
Kind of a surprise here.
Kind of like a surprise birthday party.
Something like that. All right. Well, we'll muddle through it then.
Yep.
All right, we'd like to welcome everybody here to our city council meeting for July the 1st, 2020, first day of July.
Yahoo.
And we will begin with an invocation from Councilman Melling, and then Councilman Phillips will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well delegated.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity to gather and to discuss the needs of our community, and especially at this time, we are thankful for the freedoms that have been afforded to us, and for those opportunities that we have to better our lives and the lives of those around us in this land. And we pray for inspiration for our leaders at all levels of government, that they may be reminded at this time of the importance of those liberties that are granted to us. We ask for inspiration and guidance as we discuss and make decisions regarding our great community, and we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Would you all please rise and join me in pledge allegiance to our great country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tyler and Scott. Also, besides excusing the mayor, we need to excuse council member Isom. Can't write and talk at the same time. Councilman Isom, we know he's off having fun. So we'll proceed with the meeting then. First item is to approve the agenda. Anybody have anything they want to change or the published agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda is presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move into the administrative agenda with mayor and council business. Council, you have anything?
Councilman, I have just two or three things. First of all, I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that, and I received this from the chief just moments before the meeting, that the fireworks indeed are happening on Saturday at around 10 p.m. Is that correct, Chief? Yes, and they are to use their own fireworks in the designated areas within the community. I've just had several people ask me if the fireworks were happening, so I just wanted to make sure. And I'm wondering, is it something that we could get on the Cedar City's website or Facebook page tomorrow that they are indeed happening?
Sure.
I've had a lot of people ask me about it. Also, that the parade is happening at, I believe, 9:30. Is that correct, Chief? Yes, that's right. And Chief, do you mind coming forward? I'm sorry. My apologies. Could you just verify once again the new parade route? And I think that should also go on our Facebook page, because
That's been on our social media.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Phillips. I was going to come up during staff comments.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Thank you. No, our minds are alike. Darren Adams with the police department. So we've been working on this for quite some time. There's some reason for this change, and part of that is to diminish any adverse impact on our motoring public. And so that's why we're opening up 400 South and 200 South so people can get to either side of Main Street, but also to maybe more involve our university area. So from this time forward, the route will begin at 300 West Center. The intention is to block off streets at 600 West Center and also at 200 South, 300 West, and then Harding and 300 West. There'll be road closed signs, but traffic can still get through College Ave if they need to right there. The intention of that is to create space for staging. Initially, we thought we would put it in the large parking lot, but because we have those roads closed off, we felt like it would be just as easy to stage all the floats on the street in order, and then once it's their turn, off they go without having to come out of any parking lot. So we'll try that for the 4th, see how that works, and make any adjustments as necessary. So 300 West, east to Main, turn north or left, and down to the original end spot of 400 North, wrap around the park. And then those who are involved in the parade, as far as changing costumes, they'll just come up 100 East like they've always done, turn on 200 South, let the light get them across over to 300 West, take a right, come down north, and there to the auditorium, Hunter Conference Center, where they'll change back into their clothes. So this is a dry run, so to speak, but we're confident it'll work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then I have one other thing, but Chief, you might want to stay there for.
Okay.
Could you please have your code enforcement look at 800 West? I drove by it today, and there's 2 homes there that are really in need of some
Sure.
weeds
Just north
are
of
very
200
high.
North,
Yes, 800 West and just off of Center Street.
on Center Street.
Just
Okay.
off Center, you make a right there on, and it's about the 2nd or 3rd or 4th homes in there.
Yes. I don't know if you noticed the value in and the property up behind Ace, those have been addressed. And so.
They're better.
They're better, yeah.
They're not good, they're better.
They may not be better until we demolish.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, Chief, thanks for the action on 1325 South. They actually have had a few things going on up there, so thank you for getting on that.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay. Anything else from council? Staff? I know we have Nick. Do you want to come up first? I know Nick has some comments.
Yeah, thanks for having me tonight. Nick Holt with the airport. And I wanted to come tonight. We've got a $17 million runway project that we've been working on. And I wanted to give a little update on that. That's going very well. We're in our final paving of the runway, the main runway. And in phase 2, the north half of the runway that we're working on, they just hit the halfway point with the first lift of pavement, and they will finish the paving that main runway by the end of next week. And so with that, we are preparing, there's still some inspections and stuff that have to be done with the FAA, but we're preparing to reopen our runway. And so I wanted to come tonight and let the council and also the public know that we're going to have a grand reopening on July 18th. From 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. with a ribbon cutting at 9:30 a.m. where the mayor and a few other people have been asked to speak that are key in our community. So we'd like to invite everybody to come out for that. Following the ribbon cutting, then we've got approval through the FAA to allow our public to come out and walk, run, or bike on our runway, which is a unique opportunity. Most people aren't ever going to have the opportunity to go out and walk on a runway. And so we just like to invite everybody out to that, and I think it's going to be a neat experience.
So the first flight will be when?
The first flight, I don't have the finalized schedule. I've been working with SkyWest. They're supposed to bring their airplane back on the 19th with a full schedule on the 20th.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep,
Thanks,
you can check our Facebook page. The airport has its own Facebook page, also the city Facebook page, and then our city website on the airport page for details about this grand reopening.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else from staff? Chief Adams, did you have something else? Oh, okay. All right. Seeing none. All right, we'll move into our public agenda with our public comment portion. If anybody would like to address the council, you're welcome to come forward to the mic and on any item that is not an agenda item. If you're here for that, you can discuss that when we get there. But anything else, you're welcome to come up to the mic, state your name, and be as brief as possible.
I feel like it's a good time to say this.
What's your name?
Oh, Tom Jett. You didn't know? You're forgetting too?
Mayor tells me if I do this, I gotta make sure you state your name.
Our country's going through some real turmoil right now, and it's really sad. And we recited the Pledge of Allegiance, and thank you for leading that, Scott. That was very nice. It's listening to those words are really important if you break down each one. And unfortunately, there are problems in this country, and they're not new, and they're not going to go away anytime real soon. But I'd just like to say that this is a weekend that we can celebrate how wonderful this country really is and what it really stands for. And if you ever get the chance to sit down and read the documents from the 1776 and that approximate area, there's some controversy on the exact dates. It's pretty amazing. And it's something that I think we should all not take for granted. And we should take this when we have a free chance. Let people know how important they all are to us, everybody in this community, everybody in this country. Because they are. They're all part of this family. But in family, sometimes we have squabbles and debates. So I'd just like to take a moment to remind people of how important this issue is for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, anybody else like to address the council? Okay. All right, we'll move into our business agenda then with our public portion. Item 1 is to consider an ordinance amending Chapter 39 to allow the RAP Tax Advisory Boards the ability to recommend the use of unallocated funds. Tyler.
So, City Council, as you recall, last year about this time, we approved the additional use of $20,000 of unallocated funds from the arts RAP tax balance. This year, as we went through and talked about doing it, us making a similar recommendation to the City Council, as I went through the ordinance, I read language that stated that what we did last year wasn't really in accordance with the letter of the law. So how the ordinance currently reads is that it says unallocated funds may only be allocated and spent on projects preserved or restored for city-owned facilities. In order to allow this, if the council's in approval, I recommend that we strike the word only. This would allow the council to continue to use those funds for city facilities, but it would also give the RAP Tax Advisory Board the ability to recommend the use of those funds for additional art or parks and rec organizations in the city. I've also added some language that states that they can make that recommendation if they please.
Tyler, could I ask on the art side, I know that for the organizations that are supported with the RAP tax funding, they can use it for specific projects, general support, those kinds of things. But whereas the language says it is on projects to preserve or restore city-owned facilities, places like the Utah Shakespeare Festival and Southern Utah Museum of Art and Cedar City Arts Council, they're not using city facilities necessarily.
Right.
So how does this funding allocation work?
Well, so I'm suggesting striking that language.
Oh, I thought you were just changing the one word that says may to.
Well, so A, B, C, D, and E, these are options of how to use them. So in C, I'm recommending that, we're striking the word only, so it's saying that unallocated funds may be allocated and spent on projects to preserve or restore city-owned facilities.
Right.
But then in C, we're adding language that says that the advisory board may also recommend the use of these unallocated funds as they see fit. So it's not
Okay.
a, yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that
right.
we weren't locked into just city facilities.
Right. No,
Okay.
this would broaden it.
Thank you.
I just had a question on the agenda description. Is the 122,000 just in the art fund?
Yeah, that's my understanding, Mr. Morris.
Okay. Do we have other funds in the Parks and Rec?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, just wanted to verify
Separate,
that.
Yeah.
And maybe for the public and the people listening, how do those unallocated funds accrue? How come we have unallocated funds?
Unallocated funds get in there three ways. One is we project less than the actual revenues. They'll accumulate that way. Two is if we underspend budgeted and awarded amounts. And three is interest accrues on the balance in the fund. The reason there's a balance in the fund is we collect it a year in advance, so it accrues interest.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. We'll put that on consent, or not consent, sorry, on action. Okay, item number 2 is to consider a resolution approving the allocation of RAP tax funds as recommended by the Arts Advisory Council. Donna Law, I think, is here to represent them.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Joanne Bratton, who is the chair of our board, is unable to attend today. So she asked that I come and present these figures. First of all, I would like to thank our staff. About this time every year, back up a month, poor Jason gets a note from me. How much money do we have? Why is it there? So he goes through all of that for me. And last year was the first year that we accessed that pot of monies. It was the first time that we really felt like we needed it. Again, this year we have 22% more requests for funds than we do monies for the arts group. Therefore, we are asking again to use $20,000 from, dare we call it a reserve account? That's not really what it is, but as a board, we look at those. We know those funds are there for a rainy day, and I think it's pretty dadgum cloudy outside. So we met just for process. We have 2 meetings. The first meeting, all of the art applicants come and present their requests. Most are extremely modest. They're mindful of our resources. They're also mindful of our community. Just as an idea for you, we in Salt Lake County, for instance, they're able on their RAP board to give away something like $21 million. We have 230 because we've grabbed 20, or we're requesting 20,000 out of the reserve account. So these funds help with stability and sustainability for these organizations. We have 2 additional groups this year have come into have made requests. So there's 16 if I counted appropriately. Do you want me to read each of these as we go through? Do you need to know what they requested and what we recommended? How do we proceed here? This is not my normal. I forgot my tap shoes, so I don't know which way to go.
Well, I think we can see what was requested. Is there anything specific about any of the allocations that we need to be made aware of beyond the 20,000 that you're requesting?
No, other than we are asking for some flexibility this year because of COVID. Many of the groups aren't able to provide all of the services that they have committed to in this fiscal year, and as they look forward to next year, rather than bringing funds back to the city and reallocating, there might be some cash flow needs that this helps with sustainability. So we're asking for some accountability from the groups in that way. There is one thing that I think is really important to point out. Each time we add a new group to this arts bucket, if you will, it automatically takes away funding from the Utah Shakespeare Festival because the festival gets and should get the lion's share. But every time there's a new group added, that just becomes the leftover group. So that's caused us some concern, and we may look at working with Tyler to provide some guidelines that will protect the Shakespeare Festival as we move forward. The group came to consensus. Most of the group has been together for about 3 years, I think, so we've got a little bit of a system. We review our materials, we provide our recommendations, we come and wrestle over those recommendations. For the most part, it works out that an average kind of guides us in that way.
Donna, can you tell me about these two new ones? It looks like ICAMA. I'm not familiar with that, and the Jazz Alliance.
Yes. So the Jazz Alliance has shoot, I should have done a little bit more homework on that one. The Jazz Alliance has been performing for several years. This is the first year they've come to ask for funding. And ICAMA is an acoustic group.
Iron County
Acoustic Music Association.
Music Association.
So I got the acoustic part. Thank you, Tyler. And Tyler's been a great member of Councilman. A great member of our committee. It's a very respectful group, and so the ICAMA came in specifically requesting some equipment needs that would help them move a stand and some sound equipment around. So this has given us pause just a little bit. We try to be mindful that some of the smaller groups, for instance, in Jubilo, Master Singers, we need to be mindful that we don't want to make rap money the largest contributor to their budget. So we always try to encourage organizations to have some diversified funding. That's a little less the case, particularly right now with the Acoustic Music Alliance. Their request is a little more than that, and that's just all part of kind of weighing. But I do think that we have an opportunity to provide some guidelines that will help make sure that, for instance, the city rap tax is not providing more than 50% of an organization's budget.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Diversify and leverage.
I would just like to say that I had the pleasure of sitting in on the hearings, and having come from this kind of arts world, I know how important this funding is to all these organizations and how hard they work. And I might note that I don't know the exact number, but easily probably 2/3 of the organizations, a good deal of that money comes back to the city when they rent the Heritage Theater to perform. So it is enabling them to sort of do their thing, and I think it's really important. So thank you for you and the committee's work.
Did I answer your question? Okay.
And I'll add too, just to supplement that, the Quilters Guild was a new group as well.
Yes, thank you.
And they, what was the figure? They had spent about $9,000 at the Heritage Center alone. So we figured $1,600 is just fine. That'll go straight back to the city anyway. So, but yeah, no, I'd echo Donna Law's comments where, just upon discussion, I think pretty much the whole committee was comfortable with the recommendations. It was a pretty cool process to sit in for the first time, and so I appreciate how organized it already was coming in.
Most of that's Tyler.
I'm just following in my predecessor's footsteps. So, if just really quickly, if I can kind of explain a couple things that came up. So first is when these rap tax are approved, then there's a contract that gets signed that says they're going to use them within 1 year, and that's per city ordinance. How the contract reads, it says, so if you get 5,000 or less, you get 80% up front. If it's 5,000 or more, you get half of whatever you're awarded. And the contract just says that you're going to use these funds in accordance with what your application says you're going to use them for. Then when they come in for the second disbursement, whether that's the 50% or the 20%, they then give us an accounting of how the first allotment was spent. And then they also give us a report on how they're going to spend this second allotment as well. So I know that the advisory board recommended that we give some flexibility in how they spend that. And I think we could work that with some general language in the contract. But the contract does the ordinance does state 1 year. And so if the council feels like they would like to give some leeway there, my recommendation would be, let's just wait and see. And those organizations that can't spend it within the year, maybe they could come to the council in April and explain why, and we could figure out what to do then.
So all these arts groups, the RAP tax award is basically awarded for operational needs,
Correct.
which is a lot of stuff, a lot of different moving parts under the banner of operational needs. The easiest way to have flexibility is to build into the contract to say, you got to spend it on what you're going to tell us you're spending it on, or other operational needs. And
That would be an excellent addition to the contract.
so either way, either wait till April or just put or other operational needs, and they can account for that when they come in for the second half.
Well, I know that many of these organizations are already trying to plan when they don't know if they can get performers to come from out of country because of COVID, or whether they can even have audiences in attendance because of whatever color phase we might be in. So I believe that kind of flexibility is really important.
It is. What we want to make sure that we do is that we don't let these organizations go under.
Right.
Because they are so much a part of the fabric of our community. So these funds will help sustain through this very difficult time.
Okay. Thank you, Dawn. I'll just add to it. You have a wonderful committee. I usually attend every year, and it's you handle it very professionally. We have a diversified group and on that committee, and I think it represents, this process very well. So thank you. All right, item number 3 is to consider a resolution approving the allocation of RAP tax funds as recommended by the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. And Len, you're back here, I see. Glad to have you.
Len Bannister. Our committee had a direct opposite of the Arts Committee. We only had 2 requests where they had several. And actually, their initial request was only approximately a little over $200,000. And then Leisure Services noticed that we had several $1,000s left over, so they added another project in. At this time, I think we ought to hear from Leisure Services and explain how the money's going to be spent, because it is quite complex. So if Ken Nielsen
Yeah, that would be
come
good.
up, I'd appreciate that.
That would be good where the extra money's going.
Ken Nelson, Leisure Services. So our request for RAP tax involved adding some pickleball courts at the Aquatic Center to replace the basketball courts that are outside. We're going to add some pickleball courts there, and in the corner we're requesting to put a ninja parkour type of playground apparatus in the corner of the southwest side of the Aquatic Center. It will also be placed on the cement that currently is just cement. So it's not really doing any construction work other than just adding things to the concrete that's already in place. The remaining funds we requested was to help with the child care portion of the Aquatic Center addition. That involves the construction as well as the soft play material. So that was our, you can either put it as a pickleball and ninja and childcare, or combine the pickleball and ninja, but those were our requests.
Is the ninja, what you're envisioning there, will it be okay having it on concrete? I mean, it won't be...
That's how it's designed.
Okay,
yes.
so it's safe for the kids if they...
Yep, it has a padded,
fall?
it has a padded floor.
Okay.
So that's part of
Okay.
the kit or the construction part.
Okay.
And
I think the padded floor is 6 inches
and this is an outdoor.
it's an outdoor.
It's outdoor and UV exposure at our altitude. Everything will be fine with these
No
materials.
weather issues, no UV, no, this is kind of what they do in their world, so that's,
This
they
is going
kind
to
of
be,
give it, we kind of give them the space and they design it to what fits that space, and that's that's what they
I was
do.
just curious, I think that's part of the free to the public area, right?
That's-
Are we going to redesign that fence and gating to where people feel like they can go use that?
That's still options, right? So that's still whether we put the door that just goes right out from the lobby out there to access that, or if it's a free part, that's all for future consideration with staff and council, yes.
Okay.
I think that would be kind of important. I think nobody uses the basketball area because they don't know that you can just go use that.
And one of that's not a usable space right now really for us, we feel like, but we feel like seeing it from the road, the ninja thing's going to stick out, the pickleball is going to be
Right.
visual, so that helps with that aspect as well.
Yeah, and I think the pickleball will be a great asset.
Be good.
Yes, well, as long as we don't get that 50-mile-an-hour wind, it will be.
Well, we will get it. It just depends on what days.
Yeah.
Can I just add the age limits probably on the Ninja, how young they could be?
So the Ninja, their design that we requested was all the ways from 5-6-year-olds to high school. And so we adapted it. Our request was we just didn't want to have a little kids playground that we currently have parks. We didn't want to, we're trying to get everybody more involved physical fitness wise and outdoor space, and parkour is a huge thing these days. If you watch the show, it has those apparatuses on it. Their so-called warp wall, if you're familiar with that, has 3 levels for little kids and for bigger kids, and it's set up to where if it's apparatus that's too big for the person just can go around that and get on the next one and just use the ones that they
Will
want
we
to
be
do.
able to monitor this okay with staff?
We will.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. So that's approximately $320,000 for those 3 projects there. Also, the Cedar City Rotary Club, I'd like to have the president talk about their expansion of the East Side Park going up the canyon. Is Paul? Come on up.
Paul Monroe. I'm the president of the Cedar Rotary Club, and I do have a couple of flyers. I also have, if you're interested, it's about a 3-minute video of the rendition of the park, but I want to be sensitive to your time, so I could plug that in and have Kit pull it up, or you can look at that another time. So I'll leave that up to council, Ron, to decide.
I think
Yeah,
it'd be
go
good
ahead.
to see it.
Yeah, it's short, yeah. When you showed it before, I think it'd be good for everybody that's here to see it.
Can I ask one quick question while he's pulling that up?
Sure.
Carter Wilkie, I just have one quick question. In regards to the part of the leisure services that is going to, he talked about the children area for the addition on the aquatic center. So then is that in addition to the budget that's already being talked about for the aquatic center, or is that going to help out on that budget that we've been talking about for the aquatic center?
So the budget hasn't changed for the aquatic center.
Okay.
It's still the same numbers that we've had estimated. This is just actual funding towards that budget.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
This is the existing West Canyon Park.
Wintertime, obviously.
Yeah. Not quite the heat of the summer.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. I gave mine back. I gave it back. Got one.
I've got one policy. Thank you.
So that is the rendition that we recently completed of the park. So there's an underlying theme behind all of it. I'm sure all of you kind of noticed that, but this is a project that we want to relay our heritage of how water has been used historically throughout Iron County. So one of the main key features that you'll notice in there is the Chafin Grist Mill. It's a replica of the old Chafin Grist Mill, which was up the canyon. And then as you move down, there will be some water play areas, those that are all abilities. So those with wheelchairs will be able to access and play in those. There's a center pivot, which is the current way to irrigate agriculture water with. And then there are some flumes and some other diversion structures that kids would be able to divert water back and forth. So anyway, that's kind of the big scope of what the project will be. In the end, there's a couple of phases that we've broken it down to, and hope to be able to utilize that. So, any questions?
Will the Rotarians come out a couple of times a year to help weed?
Yeah.
There's going to be some maintenance there.
There'll be some maintenance, but hopefully a lot of cement, so there won't be very many weeds.
Is this a multiple year build out?
Yeah, it'll be multiple years.
That's what I was, oh, go ahead. That's what I was going to ask, if somewhere in here, if it tells us like what the phasing is or anything in this little book. I didn't thumb through it.
They're not, it's not a totally spelled out in what the phasing is within the book. A lot of that is dependent upon how we're able to fundraise. We had big plans to fundraise, and we're all geared up with a kind of a big master plan fundraising project in February, and then COVID happened, so that's slowed us down along with everyone else. But
so is the idea that the Rotarians will put in the work, and these RAP tax funds would be used to buy materials, or what? Kind of explain to us.
Yeah, kind of everything, right? I mean, our goal would be to do it similar how we did the Veterans Park, get groups to come together and help construct it and build it. Most of our members are over 65, so we're probably not going to be doing a lot of cement work, but we'll be doing the best we can to use the resources we have to find those that will help us with it. We'll do the best we can to go out to knock on doors of those community members that are experts in that and help donate their time to the community and resources as well. So that's what we feel like that we're good at doing, and hopefully we can make a great amenity out of that park.
Oh, you're requesting these funds to be allowed to be carried over for 3 years, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So last year we'd come and there was an approval of $50,000. This year we're asking for $100,000, and those are part of the ordinance that you have where we can roll over that money. So what we're trying to do is just stockpile a little bit and then fundraise and then be able to put in a good first product, and then we think once we get that in, we'll have a lot of momentum to finish the rest of it out.
Okay.
I'm just kind of, in front of me, I have the old leisure services survey from a few years back. The word splash pad appears about 6 dozen times in the comments.
Correct.
And this was the number one facility that people said that they would be willing to fund privately, which I know you guys have raised a lot of money as well for this, so I appreciate it. I know it's in demand. So this is looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Very attractive. Great addition.
So what they're requesting is $100,000, which is a long ways from the total project, but definitely all the projects they did over the years for the city have been outstanding, and we're sure this is going to be the same way, so we gave full support towards the Rotary Club in this venture. So any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Lynn.
you.
Thanks, Paul. Another excellent organization that takes care of that for us every year, committee. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, which is a public hearing to consider approving the Bower Meadows residential development overlay. Joel or whoever?
Dallas.
Good evening,
Dallas.
Dallas. Yeah, Dallas Buckner, Go Civil Engineering. We got a couple exhibits to flip through for this thing tonight, but this is the Bower Meadows RDO. the exhibits on the screen right now is one that we kind of simplified. The actual map we put together has a ton of stuff on it. It's got contours. It's got master plan. Sure. Yeah. So Westview is right here. We have South Mountain. The canyons at Eagle Ridge is right here. Joel's subdivision, the Estates, is right there. This is the Cross Hollow subdivision. But yeah, so this is a simplified version of what we're doing. And basically, I know a lot of you are familiar with the RDO. Basically, what we're doing is we're making our own general plan for Three Eagles LLC, H&B Capital, and H&B 160. So what you see here on the screen is red is what we're proposing as R1. There's two different shades of green which delineate the R21 and R22 zones. And so the darker, which it's hard to see on this screen, the darker is the R21, the lighter green is the R22. So there's this piece and there's a piece up here. We have a couple R3 pieces, being these blue ones. This one is the one that we came through with the zone change a couple months ago and were denied. That was part of the incentive to do this RDO. So I'll just finish going through this and then we'll touch on this one specifically. But there's two Iron County School District parcels, which are the yellows. The RDO doesn't encumber those, but they are, per the ordinance, allowed to be included, and so those are counted towards public amenities, public areas. And then we have a small piece of commercial right there, which is on the corner of Westview and South Mountain. And so that's kind of the gist of what we're doing. The current general plan, you can kind of see a quarter section right there. Everything outside of this, being all this area, is all general plan for R1. Everything that's kind of southwest of this is general plan for R22, or for R2 medium density. And then this piece up here is medium density. The purpose of the RDO, if you read through the ordinance, it says that the purpose is to allow a developer to come through, master plan, and then build to a higher density than what's allowed with the current zoning. And so, Kit, if we could scroll up to the actual exhibit where we've got the table, which is going to be hard to read, but if we can rotate that. So overall, what we're looking at is, if you look at total acreage for the RDO is 367 acres roughly. 72 acres of that is the school district parcels. So roughly 20% of the RDO is going to be considered a public amenity. The rest is broken out how we saw on the other one. If you were to go today and pull building permits and everything was in line, you could pull, based on the general plan, you could build about 1,400 houses in there. There's a density, I know working with Don, I don't know that you like the word density bonus, but there's like an allowance if you go through the RDO process where they bump up. So normally your R1 is 4 units an acre, R2 is 8 units an acre, or medium density is 8 units an acre, R3 is 24 units an acre. The RDO bumps those up to 6, 12, and 24. And so if we were to lay this RDO out and go just complete max density, we'd be able to get 2,566 units. But what we're proposing is not the general plan, but not the max density. What we're proposing and would be capped for this RDO area would be 1,867 units. And so part of the concern originally when we brought this, which is Pod 8, through, was zoning at R3. You have the ability to put 24 units an acre on there. The intent wasn't there in the zone change, but there wasn't really a mechanism to keep us from doing that, or if the developer was to sell it. And so everything in the RDO, except for this piece, will just be subject to the normal zoning ordinance laws or requirements. We're going to go above and beyond on this one and have inside the ordinance that's written with the RDO restrictions to 103 units total on this one. We're also going to have a 25-foot height requirement. The concept, if you remember from the zone change, was to have a patio home type setup. So we're going to have a height restriction written in there. And then from the beginning, it was never a density question on this one. It was just the R3M zone is the only zone that allows units of more than a duplex or 2 units combined. And so we'd like to have the ability to have a 3-plex or a 4-plex or something on there. Kind of went through a lot there, but do you have any questions?
Could you talk about this this road that spurs off to the south and the east?
This one right here?
Yeah.
So there's an existing sewer that serves the canyons and the South Mountain subdivision. We have all of the city's master plan improvements shown on here. That's part of the ordinance. We put this map together, and that's why there's so much stuff on there. But the current master plan has a 66-foot wide road to here, and then at the intersection right there, it's master planned to a 55. Is that right? Yeah, so it's master planned for a 55 down to there, and then hooking into the frontage road that comes from Home Depot and the liquor store. And then it's the right-of-way's narrowed through this subdivision into 55-foot wide as well. So those are master plan improvements, and then as development goes, construction drawings come through, the developer puts in their frontage improvements.
Kit, what other, the road that comes along from Home Depot now down towards Eagle Ridge, is that a 55-foot road right now, the part that's improved?
I'm not totally sure, but I think it's at least a 55, if not bigger. It was an old highway.
Right.
UDOT highway, so there's lots of right-of-way there to make it any width we want.
Because I think transportation is a concern here, and I think that's something that was voiced obviously at Planning Commission by a lot of folks, and I think justifiably so. When you put that many more dwelling units out in that area, those cars have to go somewhere, and most of the time it's going to be into town, not out of town. So the question is, how do they get there? How do they travel there? And what is the traffic flow on it? And so I guess the question that we have to grapple with is that road that Councilman Melling was talking about, what is this projected date and when do we get it moved forward? Because I think we need to look sooner than later on that road.
Sure.
Because we keep hearing from those people in the Eagle Ridge about traffic.
I do a lot of stuff out in this area.
And it's not going to go away.
They're at every meeting that I have a public hearing on. So, so as far as full build out for the RDO, I think we're looking at 15 to 20 year. That's what we said at the Planning Commission as far as the full build out. As far as a developer coming forward and putting in the frontage improvements and all that, it'll be, per the ordinance. So as development starts, that's when the widenings and stuff would occur. I know from other public hearings I've been to that I think the city at one point did do a traffic study, and as far as where those numbers came in, I think the actual numbers versus when stoplights and widening and all that, I think the numbers were way lower than that, but that's just what I recall from those. But as far as the master plan, we put the master plan improvements of how the city has laid it out thus far, and so this ordinance or the RDO as it's developed will build out those roads how the master plan is currently. And so along our frontage from where it touches our project, we would do that widening at the time that we do the projects move forward.
So as you look at all these different pods, I'm sorry, Councilman, I didn't mean to step on you. If you were, do you have any projection, and maybe this is a question for Joel, I'm not sure, but are you going to develop pod 11 first, or pod 8, or pod 3, or just trying to figure out where the first development's going to be relative to traffic and everything else?
Yeah, and that's kind of a Joel question. I mean, I know we've been working on this one, and that was why we originally brought that zone change through, so I think that's a higher priority. But as far as do we have a chronological order of how we're going to develop the pods, I don't know that we... Okay, all right.
Okay.
And so is there, and this maybe staff would know on this one, is there, with these RDOs and road improvements, things like that, would there be some kind of trigger point where if that road had not been improved yet, after a certain number of units are built, it has to be put in? I just know that would help for peace of mind for some of these Eagle Ridge folks that would be greatly anticipating that road going in.
So that road, are you talking about the one that dives south?
Yep.
So that road goes through property that's not owned by, by Joel. So that's going to go through the Iron County School District and through what's called the Pine Hollow Trust. So that road would only be installed when those property owners chose to develop their property.
Okay.
Could we not work out some agreement with the school district and the owners, or consider changing, you can see there's that slight corner right there of the, I don't know if it's Pine Trust, I can't quite read it, but.
Right here?
Yeah. I don't know when that might be.
This is Iron County School District.
Right.
Joel Hansen. This is Iron County School District. We do own this triangle piece right here.
Right.
That is a piece we would actually look at maybe speeding up the process on for development purposes, because we will indeed have to put some frontage in on that, because we do own that side of it. So that is something we could potentially look at doing if there was going to be a joint effort, between us and the city to be able to put those improvements in for that road. I understand what you're saying about the traffic with all of it. My thoughts would be to put a roundabout right there at the corner of the school district. Most of the traffic that comes in from the county to come into the city, so they don't have to use the old flyover to the east side of the freeway. So that is a concern. As far as the trigger point goes, from what I know and understand, we've met our trigger point when we put when Talon Point started to build, and that's what directed us to have to build the 7,700 feet of road from there to there. I don't know of any other trigger points in the ordinances that say once you get to another certain density, you have to build another road. But what I do know is, that through the engineering process, there is a trigger point that says when your traffic gets to a certain point, you need a bigger road or another access. And from what I understand, as Dallas mentioned, we haven't gotten really anywhere close to that at this point in time, from what I understand. Now, that's something that could maybe be validated again through a traffic study. But we are amenable to looking at putting something together where we could do this parcel sooner than later, which would require us to put our portion of that in and dedicate it to the city. To follow up with your other question you had, Councilman Phillips, about chronological time order, because we just extended all the utilities and we widened this road, and the size of the project we did in order to extend all those utilities 1,600 feet, we would probably start in this area and work our way west.
On the north side of the road.
On the north side or the south side. We don't have this piece here.
Right.
This is a parcel we would probably look at, but this is a parcel that might take 8 to 10 years to fully develop. That's not something, even at 100 units. That's a parcel that we probably wouldn't do for, we might do a phase of it or two, but to have it fully built out is probably at least 10 years from now. And that's if we started fairly quickly. The part of the build-out process is going to be driven by the market. The other part of it is this housing here that we want to do, and the housing we want to do here in these valleys are not going to be in competing markets. So they're going to be a little bit different product. So it's kind of going to be market driven based on where we go next and what we do.
Right.
But we will primarily work from east to west.
Joel, last time when you were here on the proposal for the 3M, we had concerns about that. So could you maybe clarify a little bit or give us a more definite vision of what you're thinking about in that R3M so we better understand it?
Do you have that additional drawing kit? We do have an example drawing, and I have a copy of it here if we don't have it here. What we're really trying to do on that another thing to mention on that is the southern half of that whole 45-acre piece is going to be open space. This is the drawing I wanted to look
So
at.
that's additional open space.
Right. So what's going to happen is this is South Mountain Drive. This is the estates right here that I'm doing right now. The 9 lots that I just started is right here. That's where the road goes in. This is the canyons that's in existing. It's a little bit hard to see with the trees in it, but all we will really want to do is put a U-shaped road that goes, I don't even think it goes halfway down that 45-acre parcel. And then we want to be able to cluster a few homes together. Now, we haven't determined whether they're going to be shared wall units or whether they're going to be single-family dwellings with a small offset in between them. We haven't quite determined that. We might do a combination of both, where some of these homes on the exterior of it would be maybe a patio home, all slab on grade, and then there would be a 10-foot offset in between that and the neighbor. The whole purpose of doing that, and the concept we want to make sure we do here, is that we don't want to disturb this piece of property any more than we absolutely have to, but it is a very beautiful piece of property for some residential development. We want to be very conscious of the views of the existing people over here in Eagle Ridge and all of the views of the people that will be in the valley and the views of the people that are over here in Cross Hollows. And we want to accomplish that through, our height restrictions and through using, color schemes and the sort to not make it a very visible thing. We also will be very conscious of, you have that lava ridge that runs here, and it's a 30-foot ridge.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We are not going to build stuff right out on the top of the edge of that ridge. We will be conscious, and we will pull those back off, and the layout of this is something that we will spend, when we get ready to do the final layout, is something we will spend an inordinate amount of money doing and preparing so that it's done correctly the first time.
So if I have my home down in the canyons.
Right.
And I'm looking up, am I going to see a big, tall building that I'm looking at?
No, absolutely not. I don't want to do that for the people that live and that are going to live in the estates and they're building homes there now. I want them to be able to look across that ridge. Yes, there'll be some rooftops, but are they going to be 2-story, 35-foot places? No, they're not. That's why we put the max height on them, so that we and part of the purpose of us doing the RDO was that we agreed to do a deed restriction, but the deed restriction wasn't restrictive enough. And if we were to sell this parcel, the new owner wouldn't be bound to it. With it being recorded in the RDO, even if we were to sell this parcel, the new owner would be bound to what we've done in the RDO. And I've worked with Tyler on that to ensure that we have the correct language when it gets recorded, that, whether we sold it or we didn't sell it, that our concept is going to stay there, and somebody couldn't come in and say, well, it's R3, so we're going to totally change it. That's why we've agreed to limit the total number of units to 103. If we developed it at R1 where it is now, I think we could get 160 units on it. We're still only asking for 103. 15 or 20 acres of that on the south end will be an amenity that gets sold with it if we do end up putting it into an HOA. So when the people buy a place in here, they're not only buying their unit, but they're buying also the rest of the ridge. And who knows, maybe we'll put some trails and some benches and maybe a gazebo or something out on, so people can go for a walk on it and have a view of Schertz Canyon.
How about a zip line? You could go right down the.
Yeah, you could. We could put a zip line on the south end of that. So that's really, we are kind of stuck with an R3 zone because that's the only zone that we have in the city right now where we can put a dwelling, as Dallas mentioned, greater than a duplex. And we do possibly want to put some shared wall units in. And it very well could be a mix where The exterior, these lots out here that will face east and face Schertz Canyon and Square Top and everything, where they have, those are single, 10-foot set, offset between the houses. And then maybe these interior units that would be a little cheaper would be shared wall units. So it would be a combination of the two. But the one thing we do know today, they won't be higher than 25 feet. And there won't be more than 103 units on there.
Right, and
total.
No, and I appreciate your communication on this, because the way, I think people get concerned when there's, an R3, they're thinking high-rise apartments going in, and really, it's just that R3, especially with these restrictions you're putting in place, R3 is giving you, it's the only tool available to give you the types of housing that are going to look nice here. And if the only other way to do it really, under the current zoning, would be to tear everything down and just stack houses and call it good. And so that you're getting it aesthetically a better result with this kind of thing and with the anyway. I appreciate you explaining that to me earlier, and I appreciate that this process gives the public that sense of certainty with the restrictions in place as well.
Thank you, Councilman Melling. I know that's been a concern. What if we lose it, or what if we get rid of it? Well, we've been holding onto this property. We've been involved in it for 16, 17 years, and with the downturn in the real estate market that we've had, and we're still here. I don't plan on giving it away anytime soon. Not now. Not after what we've been through. So, I think as you look at the overall concept of what we want to do and what we're doing in the Estates project, we really are people that want to do a nice community and do a good job and have it look nice when we're done. And it will be no exception. There's no way I would want to sell this piece and have somebody come build apartments on it, because the remaining 320 acres of property we have, value would go down so substantially that I'd totally lose all the money and time I have invested in this project. So that's not something we would allow to have happen, and that's why we're happy to do the deed restriction, or the RDO restriction language.
So on the height restriction, how is that recorded? Can that go with the deed, or is that just going to be based on the developer's word or a CC&R? How?
Well, so I would suggest that we have it as a deed restriction. We have it in the CC&Rs, and we have it in the ordinance. So everyone has as much notice as possible coming in of what they're getting themselves into.
Okay. I just didn't know if that could be included in that.
That is one of the limiting factors that we have passed to Tyler to put in the ordinance to be recorded, was a height restriction.
Okay.
That is something we very much be more than happy to put in our CC&Rs and in our deed restrictions as well for this property. We have no problem in doing that moving forward, because as I've mentioned, when you go right here to this piece and you walk out into this valley right here, all of the views look right across the top of that. So yes, we want to develop it, but yes, we are very sensitive to what we are doing with it and the impact that it has on all the surrounding property. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. So yes, we're okay with that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Could I talk to you about Pod 1 a little bit, because that's where the residential, you're requesting the R1 there, and it's the furthest north point of the project, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So what we've done, if we can scroll back down, Kit, to maybe the color drawing would be good.
Other way.
Oh, yes, other way. Because I want to be sensitive to the neighbors at Cross Hollows as well.
You bet.
In this process.
You bet. So as we look at this, what we've done is, because we have a school here, and because we have this main thoroughfare here, we know is going to get busier and busier, we've asked to put a little bit higher density along that road, which makes good land planning sense, to put your higher density along your busy road. We're asking for R22 here, but because we're asking for R22 doesn't mean we're going to put 500 twin homes out there. R22 can also be a tool for single-family dwellings. They don't have to be, but you get better offsets with it. And that's something that we can use in the zoning ordinance as a great tool. Maybe out here on the second valley, we would put some twin homes along this road. You know, another thing for you is me and Kit have worked together to recreate this master planned road system. This road was slated to be a 66-foot thoroughfare all the way through Eagle Ridge to the frontage road, right? But in the years that I've worked with Kit, we've decided to put that another 55-foot road here. In doing that, Kit changed this master planned road from 66 to 55. In doing that, it triggered a change. On a 66-foot road, you can't back a driveway onto it. On a 55, you can. We will not back any of these houses on any of the frontage that we have onto this road. So we're asking for a little higher density because I'm going to have double fronted lots there, so they don't back onto the road, onto the main road. So being able to have a little better density allows us, you know, to have a little better money, and, you know, and it is a money thing, but it does make a great product to front that busy road. I would hope that most of the traffic will eventually go this way and come around and avoid the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit that will be eventually all the way through there. As you move further to the north, this would be R2-1, so a little bit bigger, single-family homes, you know. And then as we move further north, it'll be R1. I've done some preliminary layouts in this first valley right here. And what I've done in those preliminary layouts is the further north you go, the bigger the lots get. So the further away from the traffic, the quieter it gets, the bigger the lots will be. And I think that's a fairly basic land planning strategy that I would want to use all the way through here. I know that in the past when we did what was that called? What was the old thing called? RPA. When we did an RPA, we talked about having similar densities here. Mm-hmm. And that's what we would do. We would make these lots, they'll be all R1 bordering, and you know, I still have an intention, and my intention will still continue to be to build these ridges. There's two prominent ridges out here that come out. You can kind of see it. There's one there, and there's one out here. I don't want to build those ridges. I don't want to build houses on top of them. I would like to build in the valleys and have a little more density in the valleys, and then be able to leave those as natural aesthetic pieces. I think it works well, and it makes a very, very nice community. So.
And does this map show us, or can you indicate where your property ends on the north and where the county line starts on the north?
The county, right there.
Right there, okay.
Right there.
Okay.
So this is Cross Hollow Hills subdivision.
Yeah.
This is 1950 South that I'm sure is going to get brought up later today in this public hearing, and I'm not sure what it has to do with RDO, but it will get brought up. So that's the county. And then that county line goes about right there, and then this piece would be the Sitla piece. Is it Iron Ridge?
Iron Horse?
Iron Horse?
Iron Horse.
Iron Horse.
Yeah.
Iron Horse would be right here.
Okay.
So we do have some border with Iron Horse.
Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm asking all these questions, but can you, I just want to verify that as we're out in this area, and the reason people want to live out in this area is they want the quiet, they want the stars, they want all those other things. And I want to make sure, though, that this is working in cooperation with our Wildland Urban Interface program that we've worked on, the WUI program with our fire department.
Right. And I have spoken with the chief before about it, and, you know, my comment to the fire chief was, you know, what we need to do to make it cohesive with interact with the urban wildland fire code. We're happy to do that. I know he's done some work up here on the Iron Horse, and, you know, we've talked about what he's done up there and what he's been able to do up there for them. And if we need to do some mitigation in here, we're more than happy to do what we need to do to provide that and make sure that we're following the code.
Okay. And then I guess the other question I have is water. What about water for this project?
Water right now, what we have is the reason this road is located where it's at is there's an 18-inch high-pressure water main that runs down the middle of this road. It runs all the way out to Quichapa. It runs over to the corner of Eagle Ridge into that knuckle, and then it turns and it goes up the hill to the water tank. The last time I checked, that's one of the least utilized water systems in Cedar City. So as we extended these utilities 1,500 feet, we had to put a distribution line to go to the homes and the residents that will connect back into that. We've also done some work where somewhere on some drawing from somewhere, I don't know where it came from, but all of a sudden a water tank appeared right here on this ridge. And through working with the city and working with Robbie and Kit and the powers that be on that, we agreed, instead of putting that out here, we've agreed to put that water tank back up here a little ways where there was already a water tank slated to be done. It would just be upsized a little bit. We do have a master plan drainage that will run from the Iron Horse development. It'll run down through this valley and it will connect in down here into South Mountain. So if we did need secondary water, that's where it would come from, would be from that other, in future development, it'd come from that other tank that's been master planned up there. It's a lot, we found it would be a lot cheaper to upsize that tank than it would be to build a different one. Besides that, I would hate to try and see somebody build a tank right there on that ridge. That would not be very good for anybody.
Thank you.
As far as I'm concerned. So.
Okay, do we have any other comments? If not, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing for anybody that would like to address this. Seeing none, or? I see you drawing straws back there. You're elected.
I guess I'm the leadoff hitter. Since baseball's not being played, I guess might have to remind people what that means. My name is Steve Carroll. I'm the Community Association President in Cross Hollow Hills, and glad this map is up there. I've known Joel for quite a while. Joel also has visited with me personally, and you know, just to give me a heads up months ago, what was being developed. I've seen his name should be Job, perhaps, because he suffered through many years of going through this. So I don't, we love our community. When you ask where the county line is, if I walked out my backyard, I do live off of 1950 South. I could fall over my fence there, I'd be in city property. So that's how close we are and how it affects us. But we don't. We obviously understand that developers have the right to develop their property, and we appreciate the time and effort and the thought that has gone into this community. I do sense that Joel has a passion for developing a piece of property. He's put a lot of time and thought into this, so I appreciate that part of it. The only thing I would ask, those properties that are affected up against, say, 1950 South going all the way across, our subdivision consists of 2 to 5 acre lots. We don't, we're realistic enough not to ask for something similar like 2 to 5 acre lots right up against our property, but that's R1 right there. At least anything that abuts our property, at least if we can get an acre lots there, as Joel said, the density would start getting less and less as it gets closer to our subdivision itself. Just was brought up, I guess we'd have to ask, because in one of those maps it did show a water main that went through our property, but Joel addressed that with the eventual water tank that's going to be enlarged. But then we would like to know, in terms of the drainage from Iron Horse, will that affect our property? And if so, it would go through private property, and how will that be addressed? And how is that going to, will that become an issue? I guess our big concern is we sat out there and appreciated these gorgeous views of Schertz Canyon all these years, but within this past year, there's been unprecedented permits and developments going on. I don't think ever in the history of Cedar City have we seen this type of growth. I don't think there'd be any argument on that. We've had the Iron Horse development of over 3,000 homes, Sorrel Ranch right off of Westview as well, close to 500, Bauer development asking for 1,800, and then Alex Meisner west of Westview just started that development. So we're being surrounded, so we've got a little bit of heartburn, so we would like to have a lot of our questions considered or just thought of. We got earlier, I know that with Kit and other people with the widening of Westview, our first notification from that, we have that corner lot in 1950 South where we have our pump station that that is still being utilized by the Water Conservancy District. When we turned it over to them, the first notification we got from that wasn't from the city or anybody else. We got that from an appraiser. A letter saying, hey, we're going to buy your property. And, no notification from anybody other than the appraiser saying this is what's happened. So all of a sudden now when we go to bed at night, one eye is open and one eye is closed, and you'd appreciate that just because maybe the cart was before the horse. So we're concerned with all this development that is going to be completely encapsulating our nice community, which is still in county property. As you guys know, we'd like to know the impact of all these developments, how it's going to, affect us. I know Joel mentioned how is this, yes, 1950 South on the general map and Cross Hollow Drive, it does show that there's potential for widening in there. We're still scratching our head and asking ourselves, why would that be needed? I mean, that's in county property, and there's a hill. I live at the bottom of 1950 South. They've had races there, and they call that the Angry Man Hill. And I can tell you why. In the wintertime, you have the snowfalls, and I have lived there for 20-something years, and I can count on, I don't have enough toes and fingers to count the people that have parked in my driveway at the bottom of that hill when it snows because they can't get up there. So I don't know why the city would take that liability on in terms of potentially widening that. So we would hope that as we go forward, the impact of all these developments, it does affect us. Everything that has been proposed and ratified, we'd like to know where do we stand in this. And the other thing, I don't know if he is still present, but no. Joel, you're here, but Paul Monroe was here, and that's the second, big albatross we think that still looms is the water, with all this development, because I spent 2 years in negotiations with Paul as association president when we were a community association that had our own water. We were told that the sky was falling and there's nothing, we were potentially had the ability, the state had the ability to close off our taps. That's what we were told because our water, didn't have the priority date of 1930 or and before. We were in the 50s. So we still, scratch our head of why the Water Conservancy District tells us one thing, and then yet we're being told by everybody else that there's plenty of water when we're going to develop over the next 15, 20 years, housing that'll almost double the size of Cedar City. So I know that there's other potential water that we're being considered in Nevada, but again, that might be the cart before the horse. Is that done? Obviously litigation holds things up and other things that might come into play as well. So those are things that we just, that we just are concerned about as a community, and we would hope with this huge influx of building and development going on, that we would hope, and this is nothing more than just a observation, that we were really taking the time to look and have a plan moving forward that's going to allow us to maintain this gorgeous place we call Cedar City. So that's my comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to speak on this topic. Let me say to our policemen in the room, we love you.
Sir, could you state your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry. My name is Harold Pease.
Thank you.
And anyway, we love our policemen. We love our firemen. We love those who spend time making things better for us. I'm not going to talk about the water other than one thing. I just moved from a community when I moved here that had overbuilt for the water. And so we, as citizens, had to accommodate for their overbuilding, which meant that we could have we could water our lawns on odd days or even days. And we could not waste water, and the police were charged with going up and down the streets and giving tickets to those who had runoff, even onto their sidewalks. And so if we're not careful about water, we won't have it. And 1 spoonful per resident will be reduced to half of a spoonful. So what I've heard in this meeting is that, we'll take it from the tanks. But what I haven't heard is how we're going to keep those tanks full. And in all the other meetings I've been at too, I haven't felt comfortable with the answers with respect to water for all the development that's coming in. So we're looking at the Brower Meadows residential development, and I'm witnessing that development. Since we met with the Planning Commission 3 weeks ago, I now have a new road right across the street from where I live. And it's not a road that had been put on any map that I knew of. I figured there would be roads out there sometime, but it does symbolize what is going to happen to us. Lots of roads are going to be cut into Westview, which is going to impact all of us on the east side of Westview who live in the county. So we are about to approve in this meeting, I presume, I don't know whether it's 1,867 houses or 1,640 new housing units or what it is, but I know it's a lot. Without knowing for certain where the water will come from, other than a tank somewhere, without reviewing an antiquated traffic master plan to deal with this growth and other anticipated growth for the Valley community, which provided only one option, a Freedom Boulevard wide type road with multiple lanes, throwing traffic from Enoch to Canaryville onto and into our residential area. So we will be visiting you over the years and with the same complaints that Eagle Ridge has. With an elementary school without impact studies or consideration of north-south roadways to share the traffic, so it isn't all just dumped. It totally destroys the ambience of our those at least that live along that road, and in the widening of it, at the current thought pattern, it would be out of our front yards. Without any input from the county, part of Westview Drive, which does not support, the county does not support, from what I'm hearing, a 100-foot wide road through a residential community in front of an elementary school. Without clarity on other developer-created roads that will bear this traffic to major highways. Without specific written county approval on county land. So those are, in short, some concerns that I have with the power that you have over county land right now. This is perhaps the largest, or at least the largest thus far, I presume, whether it's 1,640 units or 1,867, proposal in Cedar City history with real traffic and water concerns not yet fully addressed. These concerns should cause the council to place this proposal on hold until the concerns of the community have been understood and properly addressed. I am here to remind the city council, and I spoke to the city council or city officials at least last July, a year ago, and we're dealing with the same issues that we brought up then. I am here to remind the City Council that Westview Drive runs through the Bower Meadows residential development. You can see it on the map. Its width, not officially determined by the Commission or the Council, impacts the development. The land east of Westview Drive is county land, but the political association to which all residents are a part, the Cross Hollows Hills Community Association, and you just heard our president, has requested inclusion in all issues dealing with roads running through or bordering our mountain residential community. And what is going across the street is also residential. So residential is a big word for us. This isn't, we're planning on putting hundreds and thousands of homes. It will be a residential community. Their request was made to each of you. After a month, their inclusion appears still pending, while the city plows ahead with no real input other than developers and city staff. The Share the Traffic Committee formed a year ago to provide the city with north-south routes, alternative routes, has found no one from the mountain community that supports a 100-foot wide Freedom Boulevard width Westview Drive. In our March 10 Planning Commission meeting, it appeared that the west end of the Bower Meadows residential development did not want it either, supporting instead a maximum of 75 feet width for their residential community they are building. Residents of the southern portion of Westview Drive remind the City Council that we do not support a 100-foot Freedom Boulevard width highway in our residential area, in our front yards, and in front of a new elementary school still to be built. You've got to slow down the speed. It's got to be less wide than 100 foot. We have we have compromised from present asphalt width of 44 feet, which is what I have in front, I measured it myself, to 75 feet, including sidewalks, but no more. 3 lanes, the middle lane, a turn lane. In early January 2020, on January 9, Cedar City staff approved that width, with all approving except one staff member. I was called to a meeting January 9, 2020, and told of that decision, that 75 feet would be adequate. Now, I'm not going to mention any names. They are in the room, and I'm not after embarrassing anybody. But at one time, 75 feet wide was considered adequate. I sent an email to fellow residents also refusing to sell their property for the 100-foot wide road. It read in part, quote, I was called into a meeting with the city, and I won't use any names. They were excited to tell me of a very recent staff vote that all but one voting in favor of the width of the south end of Westview Drive, 75 feet rather than 100 feet. We all shared the excitement. I thanked them and said that 75 feet was much wider than what Westview residents wanted, but a middle turn lane was doable and a compromise we could work with. End of quote. All were jubilant. The following is what a certain person told the Planning Commission January 21, 2020 of this year, addressing Westview Drive widening. This person said, they are looking at narrowing that from 100 feet to 75 feet, and this is a quote, right away, end of quote. He argued that since public utility easement already existed there, that they don't have to acquire some of the PUE along there, end of quote. He spoke of the problem of a 100 foot wide road being, quote, would be tons of earth work to cut into that hillside and make a flat plain. He does not think that is feasible just to do the cost of all that earthwork. This would be clear through all the subdivisions. They are now really considering making this only a 75-foot road. Feels like the traffic we are anticipating having there, that may be adequate. We can have a turn lane and 2 travel lanes. There would also be lanes on the outside to make turns off this road. They are looking at that to make it all work, end of quote. Then he made our case for us, quote, narrowing this road to 75 feet will not be that large of an impact than what 100-foot wide road would be, end of quote. What he said is that this is an acceptable width for city needs. Now that can be found in the City Planning Commission minutes, January 21, 2020. Now that was what had been promised January 9 to us. Hearing nothing new, Pat Sawyer, another Westview resident and member of the Traffic Committee, and I approached this person on February 21 requesting an update. I had to write the others, previously so jubilant with the previous information that the road would not exceed 75 feet, that we had to go back to fighting the city to keep our front yards from becoming new lanes to a massive highway. I wrote then, quote, imagine our total shock when told that city staff had decided to upend their previous vote and commitment to us and wanted a 100-foot wide road instead. I know that you are stunned as well, end of quote. In our planning commission meeting a few weeks ago, Dr. Mary Pearson said in the planning commission meeting 3 weeks ago something to the effect that getting a handle on the transportation issue should be a priority. We agree. The only real victory that the Traffic Committee has been able to claim is that in our alternative north-south routes through the valley, that 4700 West has been slated for a 75-foot wide roadway as well. So, if South Westview Drive is 75 feet and 4700 West is 75 feet, is also 75 feet, and 5700 West as well, we will have shared the valley traffic with no street having to bear it all, as seems intended now. You already have most, if not all, the property. How simple, how far-sighted. Please let us show the council our maps on another night. So, at one time, all parties involved in bordering Westview Drive agreed that the best maximum width for South Westview Drive was 75 feet. The immediate residents on Westview Drive, right there, the mountain community above, represented by the Cross Hollow Hills Community Association, and the new development on the east side, referred to as part of the Bower Meadows residential development. Everyone should be happy. Problem solved if all hold their positions. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I am honest. If I have any quality at all, it's honesty. And I take great pride in that. And there are people in this room who heard or said everything I've said they've heard or said. So these are our concerns, so we just want to remind the city council that you are doing this development, and right in the middle of it is Westview Drive. Everything you do is affecting us. And the more, I heard a guy a year ago tell us that they expect 40,000 new people to move into this area in the next 40 years. So we need to figure out what really we need. And 75 foot on Westview, 75 foot on 4700 West, and 75 feet or more on the highway you already built around at 5700 West around the community should handle our traffic nicely and offend the fewest number of people. So we do have asking for some traffic studies. We also learned at the January 21 meeting how you do roads. It was admitted that somebody, a council member or a staff member, stands in front of a map and they look at the map and they see where the road ought to be, and that's where the road would be. That was said by an extremely knowledgeable person in this room right now, that how you do that. And that's why we end up with dumping on Eagle Ridge, and that's why we end up with the problems here. Please let us show another option, the one I just described, where we spread out the traffic so you don't ruin our ambience. So all of it doesn't have to be, the equivalent of Freedom Boulevard in front of an elementary school that's going to need at least 3 crosswalks. You can't do that to people. Anyway, thank you for my opportunity to be a part of the information part of this. Please think about these other things. And if you're going to have a committee to assess this again, and really a master plan should be looked at least every 10 years to see if there are new variables that ought to be considered. The master plan here is used as though it is the Bible, even though circumstances may in fact change. There are 2 people in this room that have spent a lot of time coming up with alternative plans that ought to be looked at by someone. The Planning Commission and the way we have it now, we can't present anything like that. What you do is building permits and stop signs and small things, and we turn all of our attention on those things without getting a chance to look at the whole view. If you really do have 40,000 new people coming in the next 40 years, we better be really far-sighted in what we do now. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about this project and give you our perspectives. My name's Paul Rolant, and I live in the Cross Hollow Hills subdivision. I've been there for about 16 years. So the Bower Meadows residential development overlay will negatively impact our neighborhood community. And it's not so much about the nuts and bolts that we're talking about today, all the things we've talked about and the efforts that have been made to try to make it a great residential area and those kind of things. A lot of those things have been thoughtful. A lot of those things are things that, we realize that development's going to happen and those kinds of things. But more directly, it will affect the entire southern portion of Cedar City and everyone who lives there. And how will that happen? Okay? I think we've heard it, right? We all know that what we end up with is a map, and this is the piece that we are talking about. But it goes beyond that, okay? So in terms of the transportation infrastructure and those kinds of things, it is a real impact that somehow we have to grasp. Somehow we have to come up with a process that is also considered when it comes to looking at these kind of developments. It can't be, in fact, Joel, I think you even mentioned it before. You said, well, I know those people up in 1900 are going to be here for some reason, but I don't know why, because our project isn't actually part of that. But it actually is.
It is.
It actually is.
But it isn't.
It actually is. You're going to tell me there's no impact, right?
Back to the microphone, Paul.
Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, what I want to do is to focus my time on today the measurable negative impacts of the transportation infrastructure that surrounds the Bower Meadows RDO that is not being considered for approval today, but will absolutely need to be addressed. We've heard it, right? It'll need to be addressed in order for the project to be successful. If we didn't have some of these roads that we're talking about, if we didn't have some of these connections, that would not be a successful development, because you got to get people from point A to point B, okay? So I think we talked about some numbers already, but Bower Meadows RDO and the Iron Horse RDO, if you add those up, there's 5,856 housing units directly adjoining and surrounding our neighborhood over the development horizon of the next 20 years. So the decisions that we're making right now, really in that context, what the council's being asked to approve today goes well beyond what we can even know in 20 years. And I think if the COVID-19 challenges we are all living through right now has taught us anything, it's to expect the unexpected, right? How many would think we're where we are right now with the COVID thing, right? So as a resident, I'm being asked to research and provide public comments about these developments because I care about my community, I care about where I live, okay? And my biggest frustration when this has been going on, I spent at least 3 full days on the phone calling Iron Horse Development, looking up maps, talking with developers, and looking for the answer to one question. How will the roads being built to serve these 6,000 new homes proposed, how will they be connected to the existing and future roads in my neighborhood? Will these decisions route through traffic through my neighborhood? Will these impacts ruin the reason I decided to build and invest in building a home there? Now, every one of you know that. I mean, we all go home to our homes, right? It means a lot to us, all right? So it does absolutely have an impact, and that's something we have to start thinking about when we're looking at these projects and how they impact other people. I could not get a straight answer from anyone. No one could tell me, okay, here is this development, and this is where they're going to plan to connect. In fact, we had the discussion earlier about, 15 years, 20 years, what are we going to do about the extra road? How's that going to work? None of that has been worked out, yet we're making decisions when we don't really know that information. And that makes it very difficult as a resident to be able to say, well, will this impact me or won't it, right? So there's lots of different ways that goes. So for these reasons, I'd like to suggest that Cedar City consider adding some requirements for these residential development overlay plans and other types of proposals that would require developers to include alternatives as to how they propose to connect to existing infrastructure and future roads that are outside of the boundaries of their proposal. If you really want to take a bird's eye view, somehow we got to get a handle on this, because it's going to keep coming back, and the more things we build, it's just going to get worse. So somehow, and maybe that's not the way to do it, there's some great minds in this room. It's a matter of just trying to figure out how do you do that? How could you make something that would make that work? I'd also suggest that they could include a plan as to how their proposal will recognize any negative impacts, so they can acknowledge, there's going to be some negative impacts, right? And identify steps they will take to preserve or perhaps even approve upon a positive living experience for the affected residents who live in the affected neighboring communities. So I'd love to see something like that considered, and I'd be happy to try to be part of that process if there's something we can look at.
I guess, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
The problem I see with looking at that, that would make Joel in this case, engineer and plan out nearly 400 acres of development 20 years in advance when we don't even know what the market demand or anything. He does, from what I understand, have to come back each time he's developing one of those pods, would have to come in with detailed plans on this is how the roads are going to connect, this is how it's going to affect the properties surrounding them. But I understand your plight and I sympathize with it, but I just don't think it's reasonable that we make someone engineer a piece of property that's going to be developed over 10, 15 years. So
Well, okay, so that was a perfect segue for what I'm going to go to now, okay? What I'd like to do is just to switch my role from a resident to a member of the Cedar City Vision 2050 committee, okay? I'm on that committee because I care, okay? And I've lived in many, many places. I was fortunate to have lived for worked with the National Park Service for 40 years. I've been in some great places. I've lived in many different states, and I end up dealing with community transportation almost more than any issue when it comes to access to national parks, when it comes to access to different things. So I've had some experiences in other parts of the country. And, you know, the thing is, our Vision 2050 committee is here to put together a collective vision for what we want Cedar City and the surrounding area to look like in the next 30 years. Okay? So we're really talking the same thing. What do we want this community to look like? Okay? And most importantly, the transportation planning decisions we will make have a direct effect on what it'll feel like to live here, to raise a family here, to work and to play here. Right? We all know that. So that's a huge thing, and we can't pretend. I'm not saying that Joel should do it, okay? I'm saying the city should do it. I'm saying that
You do know we're in the process of doing a new transportation plan and a general plan, right?
I do that, and I'm going to get there, promise. The importance of effective transportation planning is reflected in the recent Kem C. Gardner Cedar City Public Survey, in which our residents ranked improving transportation corridors to create a well-connected community is number 4 out of 12 key priorities, okay? So we know that the people that live here also want this, right? And I'm not saying we have it all figured out, but that's something that we need to work on.
We recognize that too.
Yeah, and some of you might not be aware, but all the members of the Vision 2050 committee attended a well-regarded week-long community planning workshop in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, about a year ago. And that was to prep us for being part of this Vision 2050 group and working closely with the city during the general plan revision so we could all be trying to collect good information, right? Some of you may have attended the Rural Summit at SUU last fall and heard Ed McMahon speak. I'm not sure if some of you had, okay? Well, Ed was one of the instructors. And the title of his talk was The Power of Uniqueness as It Relates to Successful Communities, right? So Ed was one of our instructors, and he worked with us and also highlighted in his talk at the Rural Summit one simple but powerful theme, right? Change is inevitable, and communities can either grow by chance or by choice. You can accept whatever comes along, or you can plan the future that you want. So that's what I'm hoping to do, and that's what I'm hoping that our committee can do, and I'm hoping that we will do that as part of the general plan revision. So if we make the decision to make it a priority to intentionally plan for the future we want, I believe that Cedar City and the surrounding communities are uniquely positioned to have a very bright and successful future. I really do. I believe in it. The professional transportation planners who were our instructors at our workshop said they are planning for driverless cars within the next 10 to 20 years. That's the same time horizon we're talking about now with all these roads, right? If we don't take that into account now and we start thinking about that, we're going to be building stuff for you know, the dark ages, right? Their work is focused on completely reinventing transportation to make it possible for people to live in a community without a car at all. Imagine what that would be like if we could all get around without a car, right? So as many of you know, a majority of the college students like those at SU don't even own a car and consider this a screen out when deciding upon which schools to best fit them. They want to be able to get around it without a car, right? So with that kind of vision, the tourists and visitors who come to Cedar City in the future will also be drawn to come here to enjoy getting around easily using many forms of public transportation. Cedar City has a legacy of being what? The gateway to the national parks, right? That's part of our history, all right? So remember, we still have a rail spur to reinvent. Perhaps we have high-speed rail from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas in our future. And many of those visitors will want to see the many national parks within 2 to 3 hours of Cedar City. So with the right transportation planning, we could once again be the hub for tourists to stay in Cedar City while exploring the parks because of the many different options for them to get here easily and to get there easily. So these are the kind of big picture, long-term things we should be talking about and planning for as a part of the general plan revision and as part of this group that I'm working with the Vision 2050. And if you haven't been there, I would ask you to take the time to visit the area we're talking about developing around Bower Meadows, around Iron Horse and Cross Hollow Hills area. What you'll see is a landscape that is still very much a blank slate. It really is. When you go out there, it's pretty much a blank slate. And one of the few left that instead of just another neighborhood could be designed to be part of the future we want and something powerfully unique. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Do you want to, anybody else want to address before we close the public hearing? Joel?
I just want to clarify a couple of things, real quick. I'll make my comments brief and quick. There's a couple of things. First of all, Westview Drive and the width of Westview Drive, whether it's 75 foot or 100 foot, does not impact me. I've already worked with the school district and talked to the architect there, that if we do take that frontage off of there, I've been willing to sell them a piece on the back so they have the correct amount. I have, in correction to what was said earlier, Bower Meadows has never complained about the width of Westview Drive. Whatever the powers that be determine that road needs to be, whether it's 75 feet or 100 foot, we're willing to work with the city to make that right of way available to them on whether it's the west side or whether it's the east side. We're okay with that. I met with Hunter, and if they were to take it off this east side of Westview Drive, I've been willing to make a parcel available at the back of it so that they still have the same amount of property for the elementary school, so they don't feel like they're shorted and they're cramped. So, people have worked to talk to developers in Iron Ridge and spent days calling them, but nobody's ever contacted me, and I'm pretty easy to find. The other thing we talk about, the transportation corridor, most of it that we've talked about has been Westview Drive. I have a little bit of heartburn with some of the transportation stuff that's been talked about, because I'm the person that built this road that's 2 miles long. I built it, I paid for it, I deeded it to the city, So as a developer, we've gone through huge growing pains ourselves, and we've invested a ton of money when, if I had to do a real traffic study on the direction of traffic, 90% of the traffic that flows on this road goes east from the west, so they don't have to use the flyover. So it gives me a little bit of heartburn when people stand here and tell me that I'm creating a devaluation situation in their property by developing what I've worked my guts out for 16 years to develop. That traffic flows this way, and it is a corridor for people that live west of here to use, and I've had to build it that way because that's what I was required to do. We come up with this alternative plan right here already instead of running it through the neighborhoods. That master plan road called South Mountain Drive was on the map when I came here and when I designed and developed the Eagle Ridge subdivision and brought it through. So I'm not somebody that just came in here yesterday and started planning on developing something and haven't thought through everything that's been discussed here. So it gives me a little bit of heartburn to hear people stand here and tell me that we need to be held off and we need to be, we should think of this and we should think of that. We have paid our dues on the property that we have, and we've put our darn fair share of infrastructure and everything into the city and the development of it. So, and we do have very good plans for what we're doing in the future and for building a community that people will want to live in the future. And yes, this will change the south end of the valley, but I've been working at this for 16 years, 17 years, not since last year. So,
Joel, I would just say, and I only can speak for me, but I think a lot of that was directed more at the city and to us and staff there, rather than directly at you, because we do need to look at our transportation, and that's why we're looking at the master plan, and we've got to think out 20 and 30 years, because if we don't, we're going to have train wrecks.
Right, but I do have some heartburn with people saying that use the roads that we've built in the city and that we maintain in the city all day, especially with as much as I've been through in cost and time and effort and energy to make their life more convenient. So I do take it personally.
Okay.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing on that one. And we better put that on action, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move to item number 5, which is a public hearing to consider an ordinance changing the zone from residential ag to R1 for the property located at VA Way.
Make sure that
Make
lady in the
sure
blue
Anon
gets it right
gets
there.
copy of them
She-
over there.
Thank you, Harold.
Okay, on VA Way, Kit, Tyler, which one of you wants to address that? I see you both on there.
I'll just go ahead and talk about VA Way and the ordinance that. Now let me get my thing off here. VA Way is everybody knows about the VA cemetery that's going up near our south water tank. And we, in the last year or two, we've been constructing the roads, the road that's going to be going up to that VA Way. And this is called 1600 South up to this point. 1600 South will continue on to the west and tie in to the master planned 1600 South Road. VA Way is a residential road that it was connected to 1600 South, and the city went in and developed a 4-lot subdivision on the west side of VA Way, with the intent of selling those lots to help pay for the improvements of 1600 South as well as VA Way. So that's just a little history on VA Way, and we're looking at changing the zone in this area from the R1 property, from residential agricultural property to R1 property, so that subdivision will be built in the proper zone. So.
Okay.
Are we gonna sell these lots all as one, or individually, or?
That really hasn't been discussed yet. We're going to break them up into a subdivision, and from there we'll see.
I mean, we're not in the business of creating subdivisions.
No.
No, this is just some city property that we possess. It's right next to that road, and this was one of the options that came forward to help pay for putting that road in.
And we'll dispose of it in a normal routine where we put it out for bid and.
Correct. It would come before
Yeah.
the city council for approval. There'd be an open bid process.
Okay.
What are the size of those lots up there? How much property is it?
They're probably about 3/4 of an acre, each one of them. They're the normal 120 foot widths, but they're very deep lots, so they're good size.
And they have all the improvements there in terms of the
All
sewer and the water
improvements
and.
were put in with 1600 South and when that was constructed.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Okay, if not, we'll open a public hearing. If anybody would like to address this one, come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll put that on the action. Okay, item number 6 is a public hearing to consider an ordinance changing the zone from master plan development to R1 for property located at 3900 West and 1000 North. Bob, you're here for that.
I'll plat here. Yes, this is a piece of property. Well, let's get the map up. This is out at 3900 West.
Oh, okay.
No, he was on the right one.
Yeah,
Go down, Kit.
I know, it's been a long meeting. Okay, right here. Here we go. A little further. There we go. This is 20-acre parcel. West side is fronts on.
Did you just say 20 acre?
It's a 20-acre parcel. 3900 West Street is over here. This property, this zone change request is from Master Plan Development, and I'm not sure where that came from, to R1, which is in conformance with the general plan. So to make this property R1 property. That's what the zone change request is. When this property was annexed, the water was deeded to the city for this property. So,
What north and south, Bob?
well, we're about 1,400, let's see, 1,600 north, so we're about 1,400 north.
Okay.
We are south, Equestrian Point subdivision is about, 600 feet north of this line, the south end of Equestrian Point.
And it butts up right against 3900, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I drove out there today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's 20-acre parcel. It's south of Equestrian Point. There's a field between 20-acre Equestrian and here. Is that where? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. That's it, I think.
Go over there. Bring it over. There we go.
There you go.
So we're talking right in here.
Nice try. Yep.
Yep. That's right where we are. But this is in conformance with the general plan to go to R1.
Okay. Any other discussion, staff or council? Okay, if not, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to address it, you're welcome to come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll go to item number 7. We'll put that on action also. Public hearing to consider an ordinance changing the general land use plan from high-density residential to central commercial for property located at 300 South, 100 East.
This has been hanging around for a while.
I just decided I really need to come visit, so. I'm here to represent two owners. O&O Investments right here, and Prina is the hotel, the Knights Inn Hotel right here. Currently, these two parcels are split by zoning. The front of both parcels is commercial. The back right now is R3M. And they're not using it as R3M. So what we'd like to do is just change that back. The back of this parcel only it stops right here, and then the back of the hotel goes clear to the back. So part of this is to do a general plan, because the general plan showed it to be high density or mixed use, I think it was. Anyway, we'd like to make it commercial, and
Because that's how it's being used now.
that's how it's being used. Yeah, there's no.
It has for
It's all
20 years,
developed.
25
Yeah.
years.
When they built the hotel, it probably wasn't looked at back then, but the owners of that have talked about selling, and they're like, that we better get this fixed before we try to sell it. So
Okay.
I was going to drive by there. Is that back part still just a driveway, or is there actual hotel back on part of that
there is a
property?
hotel back right here that comes down. The hotel kind of comes down this side, then it comes across and down to the back.
Okay, I couldn't remember for sure if it
There's a
went all the way.
driveway back there, but they keep it locked
Yeah, it's a
unless they
locked
can't
gate,
get out
yeah.
the front.
Yeah, it's a locked gate. Yeah.
So they don't want people going in and out of the back.
Always
so.
has been, yeah.
Okay.
And the other one ends right there. It's just parking lot. The back of that parcel is just parking lot.
And,
but it's part of
and both owners are okay with making this adjustment.
Both of them wanted to do it. They contacted me and asked me to do it. So.
Okay, any other discussion, staff or council? Okay, this being a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to address this, you're welcome to come forward. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll put that on action. Okay, we'll go to item number 8, is the public hearing to consider an ordinance changing the zone from R3M to central commercial for this same piece of property, 300 South, 100 East.
Ditto.
Still Ron Larson, aren't you?
Still the same. Ditto on everything we just said. So it just had to be done in 2 steps.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, No. Okay, we'll open the public hearing if anybody would like to address it. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll put that one on action as well. Okay, we'll move into the staff portion with item number 9. Consider returning extra swing joints, wire, and clocks to turf equipment for future credit. Oh, I thought I was going to have to throw something at you to wake you up back there, Jared.
I had the little stiff after sitting there all that time. Jared Barnes from the golf course. Steve Carter and I are going to tag team this, but we'll be quick, I promise. Paul Bittman asked me a month or so ago when the irrigation project was finished up if I'd just come give a quick report. I asked him if I needed to get up twice and staff comments, and now he said just take care of it now. So I'm going to give a brief hopefully overview of irrigation, and you won't have to hear the words irrigation as far as the golf course is concerned for many, many years after today, and maybe
is that on record? Please?
Maybe I won't need to come to city council for a while after today, which
this expands another 9.
So yeah, exactly. Anyway, so just a quick summary. This was a 5-year project done over 4 phases. It was kind of the how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and I appreciate the council, the mayor, Paul, and all the staff. Paul wrote some grants for us. They didn't all work, but he put in he put in a lot of time on this. We've spent many meetings at Rap Tax. We pulled funds from everywhere we could, and we're very creative to get this project done, and I think it's something we can all be very proud of. We've taken a 60-plus-year-old, rusted-out metal irrigation system that wasn't properly spaced, that was honestly just not taking care of our city's asset, and we've replaced it with something that will serve the golf course for many, many, many years to come, long after I'm gone from there. So I think it's something we can all be proud of. So thanks to council, to the mayor who's not here tonight, and staff as well for all their hard work. A couple that really put in a lot of extra effort for us in their departments, Jeff Hunter and his crew, who dug that pond. That saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. So, and I know they had a lot on their plate. As well as Kit and Jonathan and all their hard work on that pond, which was something none of us had ever done before, and we had some ups and downs along the way, but we were through it, and it turned out fantastic, and thanks, Jonathan, for all your hard work out there. And then just a couple things, and I'm going to sit down and let Steve talk about this return. I need to mention Steve Carter and Austin Bingham, who through this process have worked way, way, way more hours than they've been paid for, and they've never complained or worried about it. I can't tell you how many times at 7 o'clock at night they were down in a hole trying to fix the old system that got hit an hour earlier by the people putting in the new system, that if they didn't get it fixed, we weren't going to irrigate that night, and they just went above and beyond, and so I want to let council and staff know how fantastic they've been. And then, looking forward, hopefully, as long as things at least stay the same and don't get worse, coming up at the golf course, we've got a tournament on the 4th of July. We've got a Home Builders Association tournament, the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary, the Care and Share, Children's Justice Center, all fundraisers that raise just a lot of funds in our community. And it's just a great community asset. And then just the last thing I'll say, and then I'll sit down and let Steve go, is as we've talked about COVID and coronavirus, the golf course as it turns out, is a great place to spend during this time. This is my 7th year here, and May and June have been unlike any months in my 7 years.
In a good way?
Rounds and revenue are, and it's not close. It's and we've done that, and once again, kudos to my staff inside and outside, while instituting many more safety protocols and cleaning and disinfecting than we've ever done before, while seeing record numbers of play and revenue. So I'm proud of that, and we did all that. I was real worried that the irrigation project would impact revenue in a negative way, and all those record rounds came in the middle of this huge project. So I'll let Steve talk about, unless anyone has any questions, I'll let Steve talk about.
Great.
And it's great to come and ask to receive money back to the city rather than be here asking for more.
One question, is the pond filled now?
Yes. Yep, the pond is filled, and we've been irrigating out of it for probably a month.
Okay.
So.
I do my morning swims there.
Oh, all right.
Thus the shirt.
Go early for the show. huh?
That's what I was gonna ask you. I used to swim in the old one off of 4 when I was a kid.
Steve Carter with Cedar Ridge Golf Course. I also would like to thank anybody that knows me at church. This is it. So I apologize. The system, the irrigation system is awesome.
You sat here for 2.5 hours for this?
Yeah, I'm going to take 2.5 hours. Since it's been in, and this is the truth, since it's been in, we have not had to fix a leak. It's awesome.
Wow.
Great asset to the city. Just thankful for all the hard work and the collaboration between departments and city officials. It's been a long time, and I love the golf course, and I love my job. Now, to get to this credit, there were some materials that were left over from the project, and they're in the packet that you guys received. And we called Turf Equipment, who is a company that we use all the time. We use them for maintenance on our equipment, irrigation maintenance, and we asked them about buying those back, and they gave us, they put this together, and we would receive a credit of $26,225.86. And so we would like to just get the council's approval to have that credit with Turf Equipment for the items that we had left over. And if there's any questions that you guys have about those items or the project, I'd be glad to answer them.
But this is the company you use all the time?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time.
I remember you bought a bunch of stuff up front too, to save a bunch of money.
We did.
When we had it, is some of this part of that
it is.
Maybe
we
didn't
actually
really have, everything ready to go at the time.
We have so there were a few clocks. The clocks on here that are going back are actually a good chunk of that money, about $12,000. We didn't end up using the clocks that we ordered. We had a couple extra clocks of our own that we have to be able to use for parts and other things like that down the road. So we did have a few extra things from that.
That's great.
So Jared, when I talked to Jared about this, he said Steve had kept enough spare material that we're not disposing of, so we have some spare parts.
Right.
Also that this was, the values given were in the ballpark of a fair value. We dispose of stuff all the time as a municipal entity.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain dollar values. If we exceed that threshold, we have to come to you and ask you for your permission. So that's why we're.
So all the accounting piece is all appropriate as far as allowing them to use the credit and that side of it.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah,
I know you have put your heart and soul into that project.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there.
It's
It's going to get better, too.
I just wanted to add, I started with Steve and Jared on this project a long time ago. I've been here a while on the council, and I remember the first day I asked Jared to come out, and Steve and met with him when we started on the back nine, I think it was then, and Jared says, I'll leave Steve to it, and all his crayons was the joke, but Steve had all these colored markers. He sat down and had everything colored and showed me every single sprinkler head and where this was going and what it was going to do and how it was going to save us a bunch of money. So I appreciate you guys' work on that. I've really seen it through. So I'm almost going to get teary-eyed myself because it's a great project to have done. It really is. Thank you. Okay, on to, geez, I don't even have to do a public hearing on that one. How about that?
How about that?
I almost did. No.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 10 is consider bids for the Fleet Building Shop Equipment Installation Project.
Jonathan Stathis, City Engineering Department. Unfortunately, we didn't receive any bids for this project. I think it's just a matter of all the contractors are quite busy right now. So I just wanted to come to the council and discuss options for moving forward. One option is to work with the contractor that's currently on site and work on putting a contract together with them to do the installation. We can't simply just do a change order because the project that's currently under contract involves federal funds, and so all the materials need to meet what's called the Buy America Act.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would need to be done under a separate contract. And so if we went that route, we could put the contract together working with Tyler and then bring it back to the council.
Was it just too difficult, or do you think contractors were too busy, or was it too specialized what we were requesting?
I don't know that it's too specialized. It does involve several different trades. It involves plumbing, mechanical, electrical, so it would typically be a general contractor that would
Hire subs?
Hire all the subs and do that. I don't know. I know some of the contractors just pulled out, so they weren't going to bid it. I don't know. I don't really know all the reasoning. But.
Well, does the current contractor have the ability to take it on? I mean, assuming we can even do a new contract. I mean, obviously we have to finish the building or it won't be of use to us.
Right. Yeah, I talked to them today. They said they could take it on.
Well, it seems to me that's the direction we need to go.
I mean, the other option is for the city to basically act as the general contractor and, hire out all the subs. But that takes quite a bit of time to do that. But that would be the other option.
So does staff have a recommendation one way or another that they think we ought to look?
Given the constraints on engineering's time currently and if it fell to staff to do the general contracting work, it'd probably be on Jonathan. I don't think he's got time.
Well, I'm in favor of having the current contractor do it if we think that they can do it and then have the ability to hire the appropriate subs to support him. Because obviously we want to try and get this building completed in a timely fashion so we can start using it.
Right.
Are they putting a bid together or anything? Or
yeah, they've started putting quotes together. They're trying to reach out to their subcontractors and get, but there again, even getting subcontractors is, somewhat difficult right now, but they feel like they can do that.
But we have obviously there's a budget amount for this installation, and so we need to see what that's going to be and see if we can stay within the budget.
Right, exactly.
Do you think they'll have it together by next week for the action meeting or not?
I don't know. It might be the next round of council meetings. I'm just not sure if they'll be able to get all the numbers together and for us to get the contract, written and everything. So
that would be at least 3 weeks from now, wouldn't it, before we can actually vote on it?
Yeah, but they're still not done doing
No.
I mean, they're still doing work on the building.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't negatively impact the completion of the building necessarily?
No.
No.
Okay.
And I tend to agree with Paul. If we had to take that on in-house, I think the time frame would get, pushed back even further, so. I was more just kind of looking to see what the council want, what direction to go, so.
So how do we do this next week? Is this a
You don't have to
motion?
do
Is this
anything.
a motion we make? Or?
No, you don't have to do anything. So the general consensus is we're going to use a general contractor.
Yeah.
So we'll pull this from the agenda next week if we don't have the numbers from the general, and it'll just see it in 2 weeks.
And obviously, if it exceeds our budget, then we'll have to look at that
Yeah,
and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so once we have the numbers together, then we can see where it's fits in the budget, and then we'll bring it back to the council.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, I forgot to mention on item 9, council okay with putting that on consent?
Yes.
Jared's
Yes.
turn of stuff, I forgot.
Yes.
Okay, Renan, did you get that? We'll put that on consent, I forgot. All I'm seeing on my paper is public hearing. Sorry. I'm out of practice, I'm used to just kicking back. Okay, all right. Item number 11. Consider vicinity plan for VA Way subdivision.
Okay, we talked about this same subdivision a little bit ago. That was pretty much the first step in developing a subdivision and making sure we got it in the right zone. The next step in developing a subdivision is making a vicinity plan for it. And so this is that step of the vicinity plan that we bring before you to approve the vicinity plan as we do with any other subdivision, whether it's city-owned or not. And that vicinity plan, let me just pull that.
So would our engineering people be doing that then because it's city
Yes,
property?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've already created the vicinity plan.
Okay.
It's up on the board there.
Yep.
You can see the.
So there's the 4 lots.
The 4 lots that are
That corner one's
developed.
nice.
Yeah.
This is 1600 South that I talked about previously, and then you've got VA Way that provides the frontage to those
Steve
4
Brown was
lots.
already up there when I drove up.
Oh, really? It'd be a great place. It's
Yeah.
a gorgeous view.
Okay,
Coming through 1950.
all right. Any other questions?
Yeah.
All right, we can put that on consent too. Yeah, 11. Okay, number 12. A public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the language of the annex transition zone. Tyler.
So this was an issue that Don Boudreau caught. In your packet, if you looked at the permitted uses under the annex transition zone, you'll notice that language is actually dealing with the residential estate zone. So we did some research. The best we can tell is sometime between 2005 and 2012. For some reason, that language got switched. So this ordinance is fixing that, putting the original use permitted uses back in under the annex transition zone, which would allow property in this zone to be used for what it was being used for at the time that it came in to the annex transition zone. It could be used for housing and storage, for animals and crop products that are produced on the premises to the extent that they were existing at the time of the annexation. It can be used to manage or for harvesting of agricultural products. Animals can be used there for grazing on a limited basis. Single-family dwellings are allowed in this zone, which contain 5 acres or more. And then equestrian establishments can also be allowed in this zone as long as there isn't permanent stabling of horses or riding areas. The one other change that we made at this time on the conditional uses table that we have, we show that a single-family dwelling has to get a conditional use permit to be in the annexation zone. Well, a conditional use permit is something we put in place to say, okay, your use doesn't really fit with the neighbors, so we're gonna allow you here on some conditions. Well, there really isn't anything to mitigate having a single-family dwelling or an equestrian establishment, so we just thought we should strike that as well.
So was all this just a kind of maybe we think a thing of cut and paste and put in the wrong cut and paste or something?
Yeah, we think probably something like that happened. Just an error. And we caught it before anything negatively affected the city.
That's good. Consent, maybe? Can we put that on consent? No, we can have a public
Yeah,
hearing.
it's a public hearing.
I'm
and
getting ahead of
ordinance, so
myself. I just
we'll
want to
have
get out of here.
Any other comments? Okay, if not, this is a public hearing, so I'll open a public hearing if anybody would like to comment on it. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll put that on our action in an ordinance. Okay, item number 13, consider an ordinance amending chapter 37 to allow governmental entities the ability to connect to the city's water supply system outside city limits.
So as you recall, Paul Monroe came before the city council a few weeks ago seeking some guidance on if you would allow an exception for the city water to be used as a backup service for a subdivision outside of the city. The council was in favor of that. Currently, the ordinance would not permit that, so I struck language stating that a water system could not be used outside of the city for residential or commercial uses. I added language that said it could be only for governmental entities that request that, and they would have to come before the city council for approval.
So just so you're aware, in conjunction with, so this fixes it for Paul Monroe's request on the west side of town. Like, I'm not sure if it's the Forest Service or the BLM. They're building 2 campgrounds on the east side of town, and they want water from us too. So they're governmental entities.
I was going to say, what is the definition of a governmental entity?
I don't think we define it in the ordinance, so we would use the common meaning. They would be governmental entities. So please be aware of that when you fix the ordinance for one issue. You've got other issues in the background that.
But it still has to be approved by the council.
Yeah.
Correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Hmm.
So we'll know
Okay.
about it. All right. Okay, any other comments on that one? If not, we'll put that on the action. Okay, item 14 is to consider a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of 700 South and Cove Drive.
Okay, you can see on the map here, this is Church Street. This is actually Cove Drive that comes down this way, and then this is Church Street, and this is, I believe, 700 South.
700 South,
Turns into? Yeah, 700 South. And we was requested to see if this intersection would warrant as a 4-way stop intersection. We've done studies on it before, but there's been quite a bit of growth up in that area, so we decided to go ahead and do another study on it. And this go around, it was able to warrant a 4-way stop based on the amount of traffic that was coming through that intersection. Another reason that we wanted to, we were glad that it warranted for a 4-way stop is we've got a trail system that goes around the lake at the hills, and then that trail system comes out and crosses Cove Drive, and will eventually go down and tie into the trail system down in Cross Hollow Road. And that 4-way stop, we feel, is going to make this crossing safer crossing in controlling the speeds that are coming down Cove Drive and crossing that trail crossing. So our recommendation as engineering staff is that we install the 4-way stop up at the intersection of Church Street and Cove Drive, and then also, and you don't have to have any action on this, but we'll be taking that trail system across Cove Drive, and then, as I mentioned before, connecting it down into Cross Hollows Road. So, the real thing that needs to be approved on this item is the the installation of the four-way stop sign.
Did I read in the packet that these would be the flashing four-way stops?
No, they won't be. The flashing four-way stop.
by the crosswalk.
Flashing
The crosswalks.
sign is going to be at the crosswalk.
Okay. And then I do have one question on the trail crosswalk. Has there been any discussion in any of the meetings on that about what if that trail coming off of the lake, rather than going directly across and drop down, if we were to drop down and then go across, so it's straight across, and the reason is that, and please go look at it, but there's quite a hump right there on that hill, and I'm just concerned, it gives, I don't know what the distance is, but it gives another 50 yards or something, the sight lines as you're coming down the hill to see someone, and I'm just wondering what the difference would be if it just dropped down on our side and went straight across as opposed to crossing right there.
Well, we looked at that.
Oh, you did?
And the problem with bringing that trail down and keeping it on the east side of the road,
Right.
is that there's a steep drop off there, and it would have been very expensive to
Backfill.
backfill that sidewalk wide enough to make it a 10-foot trail. We'd have to put up a retaining wall on that, and
Well, I know the Levitt Land is moving a lot of dirt. Couldn't they just dump a lot of dirt over there for us?
When are you gonna come get the dirt that's in my house now? I take that back.
Okay, I was just concerned because there's a sightline issue. I'm glad we're putting the flashing signs there because I think that will help.
Yeah.
Part of the reason for the four-way stop is to mitigate that
Right.
sightline issue to the north,
Yes.
because you slow traffic down coming in.
One of my concerns is, so someone's coming southbound on Cove, I don't believe they have any kind of stopping, except for Meadow, which is a mile and a half northward. So they're going to be going quite a ways. Would it be prudent, or what is the standard to perhaps have a sign a couple hundred feet before saying four-way step ahead or something like that? I just, I could see that becoming an issue. I don't know what kinds of,
we could look at that, especially, this is going to be a new thing for some of the traffic going through there.
yeah, exactly. And I think, as you had stated before, I don't think you have as much of an issue northbound because of the crosswalk, but I do think southbound with the curve, there may be an issue if we don't have some kind of notice of stopping, at least, initially.
Yeah, we could look at putting some of those warning signs in both directions.
Maybe both, because actually coming from the south is worse. I'm very familiar with that corner because that's
Right.
where my office was.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment? Jared Barnes is a citizen now, not from the
Yeah,
golf
you
course.
live down the street.
I live I live down Church Street to the west, just a couple houses. My kids every day, teenagers and others get to the intersection there to cross Cove Drive going to the high school.
Right, 700.
It is treacherous.
Yep.
People coming to the middle school, and our law enforcement does a great job. They're there all the time, but they're going 40, 50 miles an hour. I was interested to read in Kit's evaluation that sightline was the one thing that it didn't qualify as, because looking to the north, trying to cross Cove Drive to the east, you can't see. I don't know how many feet. I can tell you yards because I'm a golfer, but you just can't see. And my kids leave my house, come down Church Street, go in the Catholic Church parking lot,
and
go
come
through
out.
the Catholic Church parking lot to go further south, make a right-hand turn onto Cove, and then a left-hand turn back on, because that's just all there is. And then I'll sit down. But to agree with Councilman Melling, people aren't going to be used to making that stop. So I actually was hoping it would be a flashing stop sign, but anything that can be done to let them know that there's going to be a four-way stop, because there will be people that run it early on until it becomes normal. Thank you.
Kit, what's the ordinance or whatever the law read on crosswalks at that four-way?
Crosswalks would be allowed on any stop situation.
We put them all four directions?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think
should.
that'll help.
That will help.
Yeah, because I meant the line of sight coming south, you come over a ridge
Yeah, we were
right there, and that
on-
stop sign's
yeah,
gonna be,
on all our four-way stops, we do put crosswalks on all 4 lanes.
yeah. Because I just seen all the years I've been there that they're driving 60 miles an hour coming over that crest of the hill, and now they're gonna have a stop sign right in front of them as soon as they get there, but. Yeah, it's Renan that's doing it up there.
Slow down.
Laura Anderson, well, you could have maybe a temporary officer to monitor those situations, like running the stop signs, just so people are aware.
Yeah,
But
maybe
the flashing,
those first few days
right,
especially.
just because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the flashing signs, or something, some warning, pre-warning,
Yeah.
even temporary.
But I think it's a great solution though, for right there and with the trail coming across and everything else. Plus I noticed you added the red curb along there, which is, yeah, that's gonna be needed. There we'll have, people going to baseball games parking all the way up to the crosswalk, and then you lose your line of sight.
Jonathan and I was checking this out. We could see that red curb was going to be needed.
Yeah, that's great. I think you did a good job planning that.
Yeah, I'm excited about this.
Yeah, that's
One can get
good.
excited about a stop sign.
Something different. Okay. Any other comments on that? Are we good? We can put that one on consent. Okay, item 15. Consider a resolution placing a moratorium on the mixed-use zone. No comment? No,
City council, right?
This was brought up by council last week.
Yeah.
Wanting to do a moratorium, from staff's perspective, we would appreciate knowing, so we can write a resolution, how long you want to do it, and a general purpose type statement. Those two things would really help us write what you want to pass.
I know, I personally, in talking with staff, it seems like to rework this, we almost need a minimum of 90 days, but I also don't want to go much longer than that. I think maybe at most 120 days.
Oh, really? I was going to say 60, but if we don't think we can get it done in 60 days.
I don't think you can get it done in 60 days.
Okay, well, then I say 90.
Yeah.
If this comes through a change, you have to remember we start at sketch, go to
Yeah.
planning commission.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you hit all four of those just right on the calendar, you can do it in 30 days if you have something written.
But it's
tomorrow.
hitting it,
You
yeah.
haven't written anything. So.
No, I understand.
Right. Yeah, as short as possible. If 90 days, does that sound kind of good?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Staff, if you think we could would that work?
Yep.
I know it'd be tight, but
If
And-
for some
and-
reason we can't, we'll bring it back before the city council and ask for an
Okay.
extension.
And for me, and again, I'm sure Councilman Melling, I know Councilman Hartley, we've talked a little bit about it, is in terms of general characteristics, I think we all want the intent of the mixed-use zone to work, where there is a mix of some sort of professional building and residential living and things that elevate a particular part of town. Unfortunately, it seems to not be doing that. It's a window into sort of developing different kinds of high-density developments. And I think, so if we can find a way in the characteristics of this clause to talk a little bit how we can look at a new way of thinking, how it can work, I think that's what our goal is to elevate developments, not go to the lowest common denominator.
And and to clarify, for the record, it seems that the intent behind this was to create a path for residential properties to change into something that had a little more, and it's being used instead as a path for commercial properties to request R3 by another name. And we need to rework that and make sure that it's something that is doing the things that Councilman Phillips said, and that it's something that makes our community better, adds new things, and I think we can find ways to, run this by home builders as well, and make sure that any revisions are going to be utilized by the building community.
Yeah, we'd want to make sure we get some developers and building community involved in this, because they're the ones that are going to utilize it, and we want to make sure that it's working for them as well as for the city's interests.
Maybe you better go 120 days.
I just want to make a comment on this.
Please.
I know when we established that mixed-use zone, we were really thinking more of the area north of 200 North, down in that older area of town. We were having a lot of people coming in requesting a zone change for this and that, and we really couldn't figure out what zone to make it. And so that whole area was pretty much made a mixed-use zone, because that's basically what it is down there. It's
Right.
a bunch of mixed uses.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of commercial and some
That's a good
residential,
example of it.
but now it's sort of scattered everywhere, and they're coming in to make changes all the time to that.
But in places it shouldn't be used.
Yeah. So do you want to amend that, Councilman Melling, to request 120 days on that? Or what? I mean, we want to make sure it works for you guys.
Yeah, and we'll actually vote on this in a week from now.
Okay.
Right.
But you'll come back with something.
And
first.
to be 90 days from the time we vote on it. Or whatever number of days. I'd say let's do 90. If we have to extend it, we'll extend it a little bit, but I'd say let's try to do this to 90, and we as council members can make a concerted effort to reach out to those other stakeholders as well in the next couple weeks to try to get as much feedback as we can.
And this would go into effect from the time it's voted on, is that correct? I mean, you've got some stuff in the hopper already, we realize that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, ordinances typically go into effect after they're published. So
I mean, the moratorium, the moratorium.
Right.
Moratorium, yeah.
We could set a date when it goes into effect in the resolution.
I
but
see.
the council just needs to be aware, if you set it for, say, August 1st, any applications.
I know.
That,
No, I think it should be done
Yeah.
immediately.
What's the earliest publication date after our next work meeting?
You can specify in the resolution that it takes effect immediately.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we'd be inclined to do that.
Yep.
The ordinances have to be published.
All right. Motion to adjourn, somebody?
Second? Oh,
I can't
can
do
you,
it.
I will move so to adjourn.
I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Craig's gone, so somebody
Hey,
can do that.
you can't do that, Mayor. I thought I was going to be out here by 7:30. I was supposed to go be helping decorate a float.
What float are you working on?
Cedar City Historic Preservation is going to do one. Elise Carden is so excited to be doing this with old photos, and since it's Let Freedom Ring, we're talking about the foundations of freedoms, and we're going to show old buildings. So she's got a few strips around buildings, and some monuments, and the Liberty Bell, and it's going to kind of say